Welcome to Monday, everyone, and it's Election Day, and you're watching CBC News BC. I'm Jessica Chung here in the Vancouver newsroom. Okay, let's get you caught up. Now, some are calling it one of the darkest days in Vancouver's history. 11 people were killed after a man allegedly drove a vehicle into a crowd at the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival in South Vancouver over the weekend. And this morning, we are learning more information about one of the victims. Now, the New Westminster School District has identified one of the people killed as Kira Salim, a teacher counselor at Fraser River Middle School and New Westminster Secondary School. Now, the school district says Salim was a member of the community who had a profound impact on their students. Now, Salim was killed on Saturday at the festival on East 43rd Avenue and Fraser Street. Hundreds of people were in attendance for the celebrations, which highlights Filipino culture and community. Now, police say those killed were anywhere between 5 years old and 65 years old, and dozens more were injured. Now, 30-year-old Kai G. Adam Lowe was arrested at the scene and charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. Now, Vancouver police say that further charges are anticipated. They also say that the crash is not being investigated as an act of terrorism and say Lowe was known to them and has had multiple previous interactions with police and mental health workers. And near the scene of the tragedy, community members continue to mourn. Dozens gathered at a memorial site on the corner of 41st Avenue and Fraser Street Monday morning to drop off flowers, stuffed animals, and comfort each other. Now, one resident who came to the memorial says she was supposed to go to the event, but decided not to at the last minute.
As a community, we are praying really for everybody, but I know it's not much, but what else we can do? Just support each other. If you know anyone that needed support, I heard the radio that they have free counseling right now. Yeah, so reach out.
Now, meanwhile, the Philippine Consulate General in Vancouver is warning people about fake fundraising campaigns that have emerged online. Now, it says there are GoFundMe pages claiming to raise funds to support the victims of the incident, some of which are using the consulate's official message as a backdrop. Now, the consulate says it has not created or authorized any fundraising efforts. Now switching gears to the federal election. Today marks the end of the 5-week campaign and the last chance for voters to cast their ballots. Now, 7.3 million Canadians have already voted in advance voting. That's a 25% increase compared to 2021. And now Elections Canada says it's all hands on deck for today.
Still in law that you have to be given time off to vote on election day, but as I said, there's so many other opportunities to cast your ballot now, and Canadians have definitely picked up on those options over the years. Those things have become much more popular.
Now, you can vote until 7 p.m. Pacific time in BC, and CBC will have complete coverage for you of the election on radio, TV, GEM, and on social media. And that's it for now. I am Jessica Chung, and you are watching CBC News BC. Stay here, don't go anywhere, because BC Today is up next.
And good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. A day of joy and celebration took a tragic turn on Saturday night after a car allegedly rammed through a crowd at the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival in Vancouver. Now, as the Filipino community deals with their shock and grief, we look at ways to help and support those who need it the most. And after a whirlwind election, Canada votes today to decide who will lead our country. We'll check in with Elections Canada for the latest news. I'm Amy Bell, in for Michelle Elliott, and this is BC Today. And thank you, as always, for joining us on radio, TV, and on our live stream. Millions of Canadians are expected to cast a ballot today, capping a 36-day whirlwind election campaign. And while we saw a record turnout for advanced polls, many will be marking their choice today. And for a look at how the process is going, we are joined by James Hale, BC Media Representative with Elections Canada. Hi, James. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
A busy and exciting day for you, no doubt?
Yeah, this is the big one for us.
This is a big show, yes. How are things going with the process so far today? We've unfortunately got rainy weather, but have there been reports of any long lineups or any issues with people going to vote?
A few little glitches here and there, not as much as I've seen in other years. You know, a few polling places a bit delayed. Some workers didn't, show up on time. And,
Fair enough. And when can people vote until today?
Until 7 p.m. tonight.
Okay. And if somebody hasn't registered, are they still able to vote today? And what's the process for that if they do head out? Yeah,
absolutely. So if for some reason you didn't get a voter information card, which probably indicates that you're not registered with us, you can show one proof of identification that has your name, your photograph, and your address. That's traditionally a driver's license, but there's a combination of things. You can have like your passport and a utility bill. There's a long list of things that are approved by the Elections Canada on our website, elections.ca, mm-hmm. and it's so long a list, I'm not going to go through it all, but it's a pretty big combination of factors.
Okay, and can you vote at any polling station?
No, you have to vote at the station you're assigned to, and that's part of the process of counting the ballots in a really efficient means.
Okay, and we've sort of mentioned before, and we did news stories on it, that we had an incredible turnout for our advanced polls, more than 7 million people. Are we seeing so far any indication that we will have a large turnout for today's voting?
Anecdotally, I'm not sure, because I was speaking to the returning officer who is running a poll at the library, mm-hmm. just across the street from us here, and they said it was pretty calm today. So, maybe a lot of people got out on those 4 days of advance polls. We're also hearing record numbers of people voting by special ballot as well.
Okay, and it can be encouraging to hear those record numbers. We're not typically always dealing with record numbers for voter turnout. What do we typically see for a federal election?
Well, like a lot of developing countries around the world, voter turnout has been falling over decades. The record for Canada is 1958, which was a very high percentage turnout. And, in the last 10 or 15, 20 years, it's been, up and down. It depends on the time of year. It depends on the issues. A lot of factors go into play. But overall, we're trending in the, low 60s, mid 60s, which is, slightly above some other Western democracies, but by all means, not where it has been in the past.
Okay. And, our polls close at 7 o'clock tonight. They'll be closing at different times across the country. When will we start to get results in and maybe get a sense of who will be forming the next government here?
I'm told that we'll probably start seeing some early results about 6 o'clock, 6:15 in BC, coming in from the far East Coast. But the poll times have been staggered over recent years, so it has shrunken the time between when polls close in the Far East and here when they close in the Far West. So there's only about a 90-minute difference now.
Okay, and for somebody that perhaps is voting for the first time, maybe just walk us through the process that they will find when they go to their polling station.
Yeah, absolutely. So you present yourself. If you, let's say you have your voter information card, you present that at the first person you meet inside the doorway. They tell you, excuse me, which table to go to. You present your full case of ID to that person, the poll worker there. They cross your name off the list and they hand you the ballot. You take the ballot, you go behind the little cardboard booth, you fill it out, you fold it again, you bring it back to another poll clerk who rips off what's called the counterfoil. The counterfoil is the indication that that ballot, it doesn't say what name was on it, obviously, but that numbered ballot is in the box.
Okay.
Then you put in the box. The box has been sealed. It doesn't get open until the polls are closed. It gets open in front of a designated group of people, including 2 Elections Canada officials and representatives of the parties or candidates in that riding.
Okay. And then, as I mentioned earlier, more than 7 million people have already voted in the advance polls. When do we see those votes being counted and added to the total from tonight?
Because there was such a heavy turnout for special ballot, the Chief Electoral Officer gave a special dispensation to the staffs to begin counting 2 hours in advance instead of, usually they count the special ballots 1 hour in advance.
Okay.
And the bulk of the ones that are cast in electoral districts, those are counted at the returning officer's office. So, and then they're put directly into the database. So those results can start flowing more quickly. And it also explains why you often, you'll get a big batch suddenly of numbers will go up on screen. You'll see them jump quite a bit. That might be because they've cracked open those boxes. They've gone through the process. They've double checked all the ballots and they have confirmed those votes.
Okay. And if somebody is in line at 7 o'clock, they will still be able to vote, correct?
Absolutely. That's an important thing to know, that if you're in line at 7 o'clock, you might be standing outside. The officials at the electoral district will make sure that you get inside. They'll close the doors and they won't stop until the last voter has voted.
Okay. Well, we will certainly be keeping track of everything tonight here and really appreciate you taking time with us today. I know it's been a busy one for you.
My pleasure.
All right. Good luck tonight. That is James Hale, BC media representative with Elections Canada. And of course, a big night for us here with our Canada votes. And we will have special coverage starting at 10 o'clock tonight Pacific time until 2 a.m. Our colleague, Gloria Makarenko, will be handed the baton and continue the Canada Votes Election Night special with our overnight program after the vote. So tonight, turn on CBC Radio or CBC TV or GEM or whatever streaming service you use to catch the election results and reactions. It is 12:13 and this is BC Today. The city of Vancouver is still reeling from the aftermath of Saturday's tragedy at the Lapu-Lapu Street Festival at Fraser and 43rd, when a man allegedly drove an SUV into a crowd of people, killing 11 and injuring others. So far, we know 30-year-old Kai G. Adam Lowe has been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. This morning, Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim went on the early edition, where he expressed his grief and solidarity. He also called on other levels of government for more health supports.
And what would you like all citizens, but specifically the Filipino community, to know?
We love you. Your family, your friends, your neighbors. It hurts us to see the community go through this. We share your sadness, your sorrow, your hurt, and your anger. And we're here for you. If we want to address this issue in a substantive manner, we need senior levels of government to step up because, first of all, we don't have the resources. Second of all, if we did have the resources, it is not in our jurisdiction. We are not healthcare.
And turning now to the other big story of the day, the tragedy at the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival in Vancouver on Saturday. 11 people were killed and dozens others were injured when an SUV rammed into a crowd. 30-year-old Kai G. Adam Lowe has been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder and remains in custody. People across the city, province, country, and even the world are mourning. Many, particularly in the Filipino community, are also reaching out and offering support and comfort where they can. One of them is Jocelle Refol. She is an organizer with Filipino Emergency Response, and we've reached her on Zoom from Toronto. Hi, thank you so much for joining us, Jocelle.
Yes, thank you so much for having me as well.
My deepest condolences. How are you doing?
To be honest, I don't think it has completely hit me because I am in Toronto now. I grew up in Vancouver, specifically Burnaby, and so I think that distance is creating the sense of shock. And I think I'm very much still processing it as I'm organizing with my peers.
And as I mentioned, you obviously are in Toronto, but you do have roots here in the city and in the province. Did people you know go to the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival?
Yeah, actually, before I found out about the news, I was looking at all of the Instagram stories and posts, as I do have friends who were volunteering, organizing, or just attending. Just so many people in my circle were there. So it was quite scary to find out what happened.
And how did this group, Filipino Emergency Response, come together? I with many others, just so impressed with how quickly this support network has been growing and been brought together. How did that happen?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I really want to acknowledge all of those who organized Lapu-Lapu Day, volunteered, and then all of the first responders, the allies, and all of those who lost loved ones. I'm truly grieving with you. And the reason I'm here today, calling from Toronto, is because all of my peers back home are on the front lines and organizing. And so, really, how it started was one of my friends, Josh Rasalan, was I think one of the first few people to start forming this group. We are not a formal organization. We're just a group of local community members who really care and are trying to help. And so it was really a process of, I'm working on this. Do you want to help? And what can we do together?
And tell us more about the Filipino community. As I said, this was a day of celebration. This was a time of togetherness, which just makes it even more tragic. What do you wish people knew about the Filipino communities here?
I think we say two phrases often. We say that the Filipino community is so big, and then we also say that it's so small. I want people to know that, or remember that Filipinos are everywhere in all of the roles that you see in everyday life, especially those who are in caring positions, people just trying to provide for their families. Like, we are truly everywhere. And I think that really shows, especially in this emergency response, in all of us bringing together our skills, our resources, anything that we can bring to take care of each other. I would like people to know that even though we are dispersed like among the province, we're ultimately very small in the way that we're connected to each other.
And I do want to mention that we'll be taking people's messages of support throughout the show today, and they're welcome to join our conversation by calling 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email BC Today at cbc.ca. I know so many people are wanting to help and wanting to offer support, but we're just wondering how anybody can be of help. So please join our discussion. To get back to the Filipino Emergency Response, what kind of service or what kind of support is being offered, and also what kind of support is being available for people?
Yes. So again, we are a very much grassroots group. We're a group of people that are glued to our computers, our cell phones, trying to triage people and network people. So really what we're offering is just an opportunity to direct people to where they where they can seek help or offer support services in which we have resources. So we have two main things. One of them, which recently we limited. So we have two forms. One of our forms is a support for people to offer support. Mm-hmm. So they were able to input their names, what they were being able to offer. And then we also had a form where people can request support. And so in both those forms, there were needs identified for counseling, for childcare, for elder care, cooking, hosting a healing circle, volunteering at in-person or virtual healing spaces. And so there's quite a range of what has been offered and what people are asking for.
Mm. And some of this support, I imagine, is immediate. It is short term. In terms of long term, is there anything that's being set up to make sure after this initial shock and these initial days, there's still that support in place for people in the community?
Yeah, those are definitely conversations that we're still having, but we're really just focusing on the immediate support as people are just really grieving right now. Our biggest request right now, and the area that we have the most people have offered their support, is in counseling. So we've had over 100 counselors, social workers, peer support workers offer their help. And so right now we're just sorting through all of that information in terms of finalizing what services or how many offerings can be free or low cost for people who are being affected. And also when people are reaching out or noting in the form that they would like to receive counseling supports, we're trying to triage them to that information that we're just finalizing right now. But in terms of long-term support, that's definitely a conversation that we're still having.
And you mentioned earlier when we were talking that you've been so busy getting everything up and organized that it's sort of settling in now. How are you and others members of this group taking care of yourselves and each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I really appreciate it. I think right now it's just a matter of checking in on each other, making sure that we sleep, that we make time to eat. The other day, we actually asked people in the chat to send a picture of the meal that you're having. So we know that we're actually making sure that we're nourishing our needs. And we've also had some of the counselors that have offered support for members in the community to also host healing spaces for us to decompress and make sure that we remember to take care of ourselves too.
It's so important. And I'm curious if you've had any experience with anything like this before.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, this is the first tragedy to my knowledge to this extent in the Filipino community. And so I haven't had experience regarding crisis support and responding to this level of loss. But many of us have different ranges of community organizing experience, whether that be 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. We all have established relationships in the community, which is why we were able to tap into our networks to do this. Some people have, sent or have organized mutual aid for when there would be a natural disaster in the Philippines or an urgent need in our communities. So definitely more small scale local, and then more so on the international side, but never to the scale here. In terms of myself, I've been involved with another organization when we were fighting against the displacement of cultural assets in the Joyce Collingwood neighborhood a few years ago, but not to this extent or to this level of tragedy local.
And Filipinos have so much, care in their culture. So many of our caregivers in BC are of a Filipino background. How do we sort of return that favor in a sense and work with the community to make sure that they know that they're being supported and cared for at this time?
Yeah. So right now there are so many avenues for care that people can provide. I think the first thing to do, at least in my opinion, is if you know someone who's Filipino, whether you're close to them or not, to just check in on them. I have friends here in Toronto who are incredibly shaken with what happened. And they don't even have that big ties in Vancouver. So it's safe to say that everyone in the Filipino community or the community at large in Vancouver are very affected. So I would really encourage everyone to just check in on their peer, their neighbor, their loved one, and then follow their direction in terms of what they would need. If they maybe need someone to take care of their child or their elderly, or just to have company for that day, we really encourage that. Attending vigils, donating to any GoFundMe pages that you see that are directly from family. There's really so many avenues for support, and I really encourage people to ask those that are due to them first, and then also support grassroots initiatives when possible.
And in fact, the Philippine Consulate General in Vancouver did issue a warning about people who are trying to exploit this tragedy by setting up GoFundMe pages and using a screen cap of the consulate's message as a background. Are you doing anything to help protect the people reaching out to you?
Yeah, so it is really understandable right now that people are worried about those acting in bad faith. And unfortunately, it happens in any scenario. For our group, we are not accepting financial donations, but we are sharing fundraisers that are directly from the family members of victims that have been shared within our networks. So it's really based, in trust and relationships to make sure that people who need support are able to get supported regarding that.
All right. Jocelle, we do have a message coming in from our audience. Doug, how are you doing, Doug?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. And do you have a message you'd like to pass along today?
Yes, I'd like to pass a message to Lynn. I haven't talked to her in many moons. It was 82. I worked with Sundance Trampolines, and she worked there too, and she was the Filipino community. So if you can hear me, God bless you, Lynn, and I'm really sorry for what happened to everybody, and let's all work together, and we'll get through this. And the Philippines were beautiful people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for writing in, Doug. And we did get an email from Randy. He writes, "My sincerest condolences to those in the Filipino community affected by this senseless tragedy. I especially send my healing thoughts to Michelle Elliott, who has always been someone proud of her heritage and who now deserves the same empathy she has brought to those in need in the Vancouver area over the years." And I do share that sentiment. Our hearts are with Michelle today and for all the days following. Jocelle, is there a message that you have for people who want to help or who do need help themselves?
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's so lovely to hear those messages from people just reaching out to those in their lives, or people from maybe a long time ago that they're still thinking about. I really want to thank everyone who has offered their support to the community, whether that be local, provincial, national, or really global. It's a really difficult time for us right now. So as I mentioned, the number one thing is checking in with your loved ones and friends in Vancouver, in BC, like in Canada, honestly, any Filipino that you know, because of the spirit of kapwa, which is shared identity, we're all affected, even if it's not in our own neighborhoods. And I ask everyone to support, all of the initiatives that you see, grassroots efforts. There are people really trying to do their part. And it's really now more than ever, we really just need to work together to be able to move forward in a good way.
Jocelle, I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. I know you are going through a lot and you are doing so much to care and support those around you. And I do hope that you have that care and support returned to you as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Jocelle Refol is an organizer with Filipino Emergency Response. Their website is vanfilemergency.my.canva.site. That's van, F-I-L, emergency.my.canva.site. This is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC. We can be found on YouTube at CBC Vancouver and on the CBC News app. Time is now 12:30. It's time for the CBC News with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. The superintendent at the New Westminster School District says a teacher counselor was one of the 11 people killed in the attack at the Filipino Street Festival Saturday evening. Mark Davidson says Kira Salim was a valued member of the community. The district says it's offering support to staff, students, and families. Police say the victims who died range in age from 5 to 65. Meanwhile, memorials are growing near the site of the attack at Fraser and 43rd. Hundreds of people have also been attending vigils. Filipino BC Chair RJ Aquino says many in the community are sad, angry, and devastated by the tragedy. And millions of Canadians are casting their ballots today in the federal election. Polling stations are open until 7 o'clock tonight here in BC. CBC coverage begins at 3:30 Pacific on most platforms, 5 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And now the forecast on the north coast. Cloudy this afternoon with a slight chance of showers and a high of 10. Highs to 13 with a few showers and strong winds in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, rain tapering off, then cloudy with a high of 14. Highs up to 21 with increasing cloudiness in the West Kootenay, mainly sunny in the East Kootenay. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a chance of showers with a high of 17. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, periods of rain this afternoon with highs to 13 degrees. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Robert. And it has been less than 2 days since the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival tragedy, and community members are still grappling with a swell of emotions and unanswered questions. The early edition checked in with RG Aquino this morning. He is the chair of Filipino BC, which organized the festival.
I really have to, commend the volunteers because as it was described to me when this was happening, they still, looked out for each other, looked out for the people that were there, made sure that people were out of harm's way as soon as they saw that it was safe to do. But it looking at everyone's faces that evening, you could tell that it was a traumatic event. We're a day removed from it now, but I'm still trying to figure out how I feel. I'm still trying to figure out how to process these emotions. I'm also still figuring out how to communicate this to my young children, and it's so difficult to understand it as a grown-up. How can I articulate this for them that it's a scary thing, and inevitably they're going to talk about it in school, but how can we kind of provide that comfort, reassurance, and just support so that they know not to live in fear.
And it is indeed another day of grief and shock, especially for members of the Filipino community after the alleged car ramming attack on Saturday night that killed at least 11 people at the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival in Vancouver. And as so many will need support, we are asking, what is your message to the Filipino community? You can call us now at 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. And you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Michelle Wing is a registered social worker and registered clinical counselor whose practice focuses on trauma. She is also a member of the Filipino community, and she joins us. Michelle, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
I know this has just been a devastating event for you and your community. How are you doing?
Even just watching that clip of RJ, it's so much of many people of what we're feeling. And he also said we're already in day 2. I guess I'd reframe it as we're ground zero. We're still.
It's so fresh.
Exactly, so fresh. We're deeply in it, and anyway, just from the trauma brain, we want to act, and in some ways we do need to, but I think especially as Filipinos, we need to be cared for.
And it's this heartbreaking irony in a sense. As we know, so many people, such as yourself, are in positions of Filipino are in these positions of being caregivers, and we look to them to take care of us and to provide comfort for us. And how do we make sure that these people are now being held and supported and cared for?
So many different, so many levels of ways to answer that. I mean, systemically, financially, we need the spaces to grieve. We need the resources, the money, the infrastructure as one piece of it.
Yeah.
Another level is like obviously the stigmatization, one around grief alone. It's difficult to talk about grief. People,
They shy away from it.
they don't know what to say.
No.
They think you're going to upset people more, when that is actually the exact opposite. Is we need people to be curious of how our grief is in that moment. Even if we don't feel like we know how to hold space for them, it's just to be present and be curious and not try to fix it and not try to, suppress the feelings that come up is one way.
And we've talked about that on the show today, but that is something that people truly struggle with when they see somebody that's grieving, that's in shock. The impulse is to fix it or to not point it out, when that is what you're feeling, that is where you are existing in that moment, and people need to meet you there in that sadness, in that grief.
Yeah, anyways, I was on the show earlier, a different show earlier today, and just saying like what we can do is notice how ourselves are feeling. So it's not just like identifying our feelings, but also having a boundary of understanding how long we can stay in the feeling, and seeing and assessing around us others where they're at and if they can hold capacity, or if we one way is also asking other people to support us when we know that we can't. Anyway, these are all skills, and practices that a lot of us are working on.
Yeah, and it is. It's a skill that you unfortunately only pick up when you go through something deeply saddening, deeply upsetting.
Yes.
I do want to bring in some calls. We have so many people that want to offer their condolences and their support to people across the province. We'll bring in Sheena from Victoria. Hi, Sheena.
Hello.
Hi. What was your message today?
Well, I have 2 points to make, and the first is how devastated I am for the people who are suffering directly from this terrible, terrible incident. And every Filipino, Filipina, Canadian who must feel some sympathy as well. And I've found that every Filipino, Canadian, or immigrant that I've met has been the warmest, loveliest person. And I think they have a marvelous culture and make an incredible contribution to Canada. We are so much better for having Filipino Canadians. I actually was in respite care after surgery for a couple of weeks, and the care I received, from all the Filipino staff was just marvelous. And it wasn't forced. They weren't doing it just because it was the job they can get. It was a real career. They had trained for it, and they were absolutely wonderful in it. And I think that has to be a reflection of their culture.
That commitment and care.
Absolutely. It radiated from them. It wasn't just a job for them. It was absolutely wonderful. We have a lot to learn, and about also, the wonderful care in their families and how they work together as a community and keep in touch with their community. And don't devolve to sort of age-only events. Just wonderful, wonderful community.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Sheena. And Michelle, that is something that's been highlighted many times over the last day. Just this, the Filipino culture is so connected and caring, and has such a outpouring of kindness for other people. And I suppose now people want to try and repay that. Tell me about, the Filipino culture. What are some of the markings that people might recognize of that culture?
I do really appreciate that question, because Filipinos are known as like the caregivers globally.
Yeah.
I just want to add that we are also more than that.
Yes, absolutely.
We're very celebrative people. If you go to the Philippines, like it's just constant festivals, and bright colors and joy, and there's so many parts of our identity that people are also familiar with. Like karaoke,
yes,
basketball players, boxers, So I think I just want to portray that there's also more to our identity as just caregivers.
No, there's so much joy.
And that has been, being a caregiver has been out of survival, of a country that's been through so much colonialism. And so that has been our road out of poverty. And so anyway, I just wanted to highlight that there's...
No, I really appreciate you making that point. That is an important part of that culture and why so many people have gone into it. And it is important to talk about that.
Thank you.
We do have another call from Cody in Trail. Hi, Cody.
Good afternoon, Amy. Good afternoon, Michelle. My condolences to all of your colleagues at CBC and to Michelle Elliott, who is a constant beacon of BC today. She's brought us through pandemic and everything, so my heart is just broken for her today.
I know. It's a difficult time for Michelle.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Amy, if there's anybody out there that's on Twitter or X or Facebook, can we start a hashtag Vancouver Strong and just let every Filipino know, that Filipino Canadian know that we're standing behind them. And I mean, even and I'll say right now, respectively, the whole West Kootenays, Olive Trail, Castlegar, Fruitville, Rossland is standing behind Vancouver. We stand behind you guys.
Well, thank you so much for that, Cody. And Michelle, our host of the show, Michelle Elliott, is a very proud Filipino who champions her culture and is so connected to her community. This obviously has been a very difficult time for her, difficult day for her. So we are all thinking of Michelle and also thinking of you, the two Michelles that we have in our hearts right now. What are some of the emotions that somebody might be experiencing as a result of what happened? I know we keep talking about the shock, but grief can take many different forms. What might somebody be feeling right now?
I would say dissociation. Just the numbness, the wanting to check out, as one because when we dissociate, it's because our bodies are overwhelmed with trauma,
right?
And that's what we are experiencing right now, collective trauma. Whether you were there that day, which I was, or whether you're witnessing, especially all these images that are coming online, and so dissociation, but also like this urgency, an urgency to figure out what to do next.
Right.
Whether it be we focus on like the why or focusing on what's next.
Right.
In part.
All those answers that people want to find and solutions. It's this urgency and this immediacy that people are sort of pivoting to that as they come out of this shock.
Sure. Which is, in part what we need to do, because it is so painful and to hold in our bodies, we want to heal,
Yeah.
Quickly. And as been seeing and hearing, there is a deep collective grief and mourning happening right now, which is what we need to do right now, is to be together.
Yeah, and that it is okay to sit in that grief right now. You don't need to leap into action. You do work, people that have experienced trauma. So this is the immediate after. What about the long term after? What are some of the ways that this trauma might continue to affect people weeks, months, even years from now?
I appreciate that question as well, because this is the long game. This is a memorial date.
Yes.
Saturday will be a memorial date, and people will be experiencing complex PTSD when they go to that neighborhood.
Yeah.
When a year from now, at any moment. And sorry, the question is what's ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, grief isn't linear.
No.
And so that shock, the shock is going to come up again, years from now, a year from now, as well as other feelings such as, anger, sadness, disbelief. Anyway, there's going to be a wave of overwhelming feelings for a long time. And yeah.
You just have to take it step by step, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We do have an email from Lisa. She writes, "My heart goes out to Michelle and all Filipinos all across BC who may be connected to the community. The incident that happened in Vancouver is so unnecessary and horrible. We're with you, we care about you, and we hope you have support and can reach out if you need it. We need to have more kindness, understanding, caring, and connection in our communities, province, country, and world." It's always wonderful to call for more connection and community. Regardless, it is always so sad that it comes out in times of such grief and trauma.
I just wanted to add that, down the road, yes, there's going to be a different shape to the Filipino community.
Yeah.
The hope is that there'll be more resources for us, and that there will actually be deeper connection. And, because of what happened, and there's more attention, locally, provincially, nationally, globally, that is going to have a huge impact on our healing. And to have that affirmation of the trauma that we're going through right now will also create, hopefully, a more hopeful and better path towards that collective healing.
And it won't go away, and it will change people from here on out. It will change that community. And I know, there's people that have been organizing for quite some time to get a cultural center, a Filipino cultural center built here, a place for gathering, so that Filipino people have that concrete place, a space to claim as their own, and a place to exist together.
It'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just also want to add to the different shape is that, that we can be cared for. We're not just these caregivers, and that we have to keep giving. And that's our work too, is to be able to receive, which is hard for a lot of people. But I hope that will also be the direction of where we will get the support that we need.
And we still welcome anyone's messages of support for the Filipino community. You can, of course, call us at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can email us bctoday@cbc.ca. We are with Michelle Wing, a registered social worker and registered clinical counselor who practice also focuses on trauma. And you were at the Lapu-Lapu Day festivities. Tell us about that day. What was it like to be there during the day when it was a source of such pride and happiness for people?
Also, again, I really appreciate that question, because anyway, I was there early. I knew people who were performing, so I watched a lot of performances, and I was there last year as well, and so there was a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, because it was the second year.
It was the second year, and so many familiar faces, and I've had the privilege of returning home to the Philippines and coming here and just being so many, it was almost like being in the Philippines with just all these familiar faces, people who look like me, and seeing that cultural pride and that cultural celebration. And it was huge. There were so many people there. My camera is filled with happy faces of people who I really care about, and hearing music that was affirming to me, and so many tragic pieces to it. But I left 15 minutes before it happened, and I think a lot of people, as ones I've talked to, it's like so many emotions are going to come up, but it's like that could have been me.
Yeah.
And I even feel like I'm glad I wasn't even there to witness, and I feel guilty for that as well, because I guess you call that survivor's guilt.
That's tough, and
Yeah.
I'm sure many people are feeling the way that you are. And as we mentioned before, it's you're in a position that you want to help people, but you also need to be cared for while you walk through this. You were a part of this.
Grieving is a privilege. Not only do we not have the spaces to grieve, but we live in this capitalist city. I gotta go to work. I gotta raise my kids. I have to, taking care of my own mental health is a job in its own. And with this kind of trauma, and most of our people just trying to survive, it feels like grieving is a back burner.
And it's so it's on a back burner, which is so backwards in a sense, because it's such a huge emotion and can take over. But it is exactly as you said. People that are feeling that grief still have to wake up this morning. They still have to get their kids to school. They still have to go to work. They're voting. There's so much that they still have to do. How can people check in on themselves to see how they're doing, to recognize what they're feeling?
It takes courage.
Yeah.
And it's because of that stigma. Even I'm a therapist. I'm a trauma therapist. I should be okay. I should I should be able to talk on a interview show and pretend I know what I'm talking about. When really part of me does, and part of me is really suffering.
Yeah.
And so anyway, a way to get through this is also to know, and I have to know my limits. I can't just keep watching the news. I can't take any more images of that day. And
you need to
do those basic things: eat, sleep, water, stay connected, take a break from the grief, and also carve out time to grieve. Like going to these vigils, and organizing a vigil could be just like you're with your family and you light a candle when you share a meal.
Yeah. And I really do appreciate you being with us and through your grief, offering to help other people that are going through it, and to explain to people what steps they might be having to take. I do really appreciate you coming in. We do have one more call to come in from Kath in Saanich. Hi, Kath. How are you?
Hi there. Well, I'm okay, and I just wanted to add my esteem and my voice of love and gratitude for the Filipino people as a whole and for those phenomenal caregivers who have come to Canada and are caring for our people in need, be they the elderly or be they younger people in need of care. We are so fortunate to have this community in our midst, and I'm assuming that the person who did this, I can't imagine him choosing to do it for the Filipino people, but maybe just choosing to do it for a crowd, because you certainly cannot find a kinder and a better people. And so my question for you, first of all, I appreciate the thoughts that have been given. I'm a hospice palliative care nurse and an educator, so this is part of my field.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts that have been offered have been fabulous, but I'm wondering if you have already talked, when I wasn't listening to your session today, about any GoFundMe or any other projects to raise some money to help support those who have lost family members and those who are wounded.
Oh, well, I thank you for those comments and that question, Kath. And there are 4 vetted GoFundMe campaigns that are linked on the Filipino Emergency Resource website. That's vanfileemergency.my.canva.site. And just before I let you go, Michelle, what would you say to somebody if they feel they just are not coping well? What can they do right now?
It's professional help. It really is, because especially, it is a skill. It is a skill to be able to provide that kind of deep pain and mental health.
Yeah.
Even as a professional, I can't help someone alone.
I know.
So it's finding professional help. And if you're not able to do that, you need to find someone who's emotionally safe to you, to bring you there, to guide you there, in part.
We'll have to leave it there. I thank you so much for joining us. That was Michelle Wing, and she is a registered counselor. And that is